Hello and welcome. In this video, we will be talking about how to manage the vendors that you're going to utilize through BarterPay. For most businesses you'll barter from, such as restaurants, spas, etc., you're going to be paying with your BarterPay card at the point of sale and simply receiving a normal, typical receipt from a cash register. However, in other cases, there are larger jobs you might need done, like, say, a construction project or a website. And in those cases, there will most likely be a blend of cash and barter in the billing, especially if the total amount is over $5,000. There also will be deals you set up on full barter, both large and small, and it will be important to know how to properly pay the bill. So let's look at setting up a new vendor and also setting up an invoice and paying a bill. So, setting up an invoice. Let's say you're going to work with Steve's Contracting. Steve Kanabi is going to be your contact. You may or may not want to put a reference number in there. You may say BarterPay or BarterPay 002 to identify that they're a vendor that you're using through BarterPay, at least in part. You'd identify a province. I am choosing Ontario. And then you want to identify the common account that, generally speaking, you're going to be posting the expenditures to. Obviously, you can change this on any particular invoice, rather than creating a category. I'm going to put it under general expenses, but you might have some sort of upkeep or maintenance category that might be more fitting. We could put it under maintenance repairs as well. There's a few options you would create an account for, but this is just a basic setup for accounting, so we'll stick with general expenses. Under payment details, make sure you set it up as BarterPay under terms of the account name. I'm going to type we agree to BarterPay terms with this vendor. On larger jobs, there may be both CAD and BarterPay invoicing. All right, so now you've created the vendors. Steve's Contracting. There's a reference that has a BP in it, which is indicating BarterPay. And like I say, you could manage that in a number of different ways in terms of the way the reference is there. You also could put the BP in brackets beside his name, indicating this customer is through BarterPay. You are highlighting that this vendor is at least doing part of your deal through BarterPay. And I say part because if they're doing contracting, it is very likely that they're doing work that is over the $5,000 limit we have as a guideline. What that means is that when the total bill for the work is below $5,000, everything has to be on 100% barter. When the amount is over $5,000, it's obviously negotiable. In this example, the deal is between Marshall Bob's Saloon and Steve's Contracting. So now we're trying to make an invoice for Steve's Contracting, who has submitted his invoice for payment. Oftentimes in more advanced systems, you'd have a purchase order system that would be attached to this. In this case, we'll put in Steve's Contracting's invoice number and also a purchase order number for the work that you wanted done. As we talked about in the sales process, the way that the invoice is split up for barter versus cash on a larger transaction may vary. So in some cases, you may have two separate invoices. Even if you don't get two separate invoices, you could split the one invoice into a cash or Canadian dollar and a barter one and do the two parts separately. We'll start by doing an example with an invoice that has both the cash and barter components on it. So we'll do a bathroom renovation, the barter portion and Canadian. Let's say they were willing to do $7,500 in barter, and they were willing to do the balance of $2,500 in Canadian. So we'll save that invoice. And now we need to record the invoice, the payment. So the payment for the BarterPay amount is the $8,475. We'll type in the BarterPay transaction number. Now that left an outstanding balance of $2,825, which is due in Canadian dollars. And so in that case, we're going to take it from the checking account and we're going to cut a check. I'm actually going to print the check later. And now we've paid Steve's Contracting, where we kept the BarterPay and the Canadian dollar amounts all in one invoice and created split payments. The other option is to set it up with two separate invoices. So we'll do that now. Again, we're using Steve's Contracting. Let's pretend that he does not split the invoicing so that we have to use the same invoice number for both. You could put BP in the reference. Under the item, you don't need to necessarily type barter in there because you've identified it in the reference number up here. Just as we did before, we'll put 7,500 under the price column. And now you have a barter invoice that is set up for 8,475. Now you will walk through the same step for the other portion of the bill that is in Canadian dollars. This is a PO, and let's say that your normal PO numbering system just looks like that. The Canadian portion here is 2,500. And then when you're doing payments, you would obviously set it up as a check under payment method. And then on the other vendor invoice, it's still outstanding. We have the 8,475 still unpaid here. We'll record payment and pay it from the BarterPay account. Now, both those invoices are paid. So that's the option of having it split into two invoices. Once again, Steve's Contracting can provide one invoice that is to be paid part in cash and part in barter when you're doing larger barter deals. And the other option would be to provide two invoices. Having two separate invoices could make life easier because then you have a distinct barter invoice and a distinct cash invoice. So that's it for now. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to get in touch with your barter coach. We are here to help.